Hey guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial where we are building this CMS application using ASP.NET Core and Angular 10. In the last video tutorial, we finished working on the API endpoint for our user service so we can fetch the user details. We have completed the profile.js file where we have added the required methods. Now in this video tutorial, let's go ahead and test to see that if all the implementations that we have done work appropriately. So before we go ahead and test, we need to add all the dependencies in the middleware of our application. So to inject it in the middleware, we will go to the startup class and start adding the following piece of code. So first thing we will add is the dependency for the country service. So we'll inject that into the middleware. So this is where we add the dependency in the startup class. We will add the interface and the country service. We will add the service as transient. So for every request, there is a object instantiated. Now, then the next thing that we need to do is enable CORS in our application. Since we are using API, so cross-origin request should be supported in the API, and therefore we can enable cross-origin requests using the services.add_CORS method, and we can provide a name for our CORS policy, and then we can build the CORS policy like this with the following options. So if you need more information on what is cross-origin request, you can read the Microsoft documentation. To keep it short, cross-origin request basically means that our API endpoints can be accessed from different clients. It's not necessary that it has to be accessed from this ASP.NET Core application. It can be also accessed by a third-party application. So if we build an application using React or Angular and we want to access those endpoints or call those API methods, so we can call those API methods from our application. So our application does not have to be on the same domain. So here we have added this into the middleware. Once we create the enable CORS policy, then we will go ahead and add it over here like this app.useCourse and the name of the course policy under the configure method. Also, now the next thing that we would want to add is the API versioning. So we have added API versioning, we have added the package that is required, we implemented it. Now we need to add it to the middleware as well. So our middleware is aware about the API versioning scheme in our application. And here we will add the service to the middleware. This is the code to do that. Initially the API version is set to 1.0, sorry 1. And the next thing that we would also want to add after the API versioning is the user service itself. So I have added it here just about the app settings. As I mentioned earlier, there is no order here to follow. You can add it in any order that you like. So I have added all the user related services on top here. So I have added the user service here in this order. So the user service is added, the course policy is added, the API versioning endpoint is added, and the country service also is added to the middleware. So now we should not receive any errors in our classes when we try to inject these services. Let's go and go delete the migrations folder because we would need to rebuild our migrations. The reason being we have created the country model. We need to add these countries to our database. Therefore, I will go ahead and go to the application DB context in the data service. And here we will add the country model, and the country model is basically the country table that we are adding to the database so that we can add all the countries. Here we have initialized all the countries using the following method, so we can use this to create our database. So now the next thing that we need to do is build our application and then run the migration command once again to build the migration folder. So the build was successful. So now let's right click on our project, go to tools and then open it in terminal. Here inside the terminal, we will type in the commands to create the migrations for application DB context and for the data protection key context. We have two context classes in our application and we need to uh, build the migration for both these databases. So let's go ahead and build it. The command is .NET EF migrations, add the name of your migration, its initial create, you can name it anything you like, and then the context flag to specify the context name, application DB context. This is the name of your context class, and then hit enter. Now the entity framework core will build the migrations for us and create the migrations folder. This might take few seconds. So the build is done. We have a migration folder. Now let's also create the migration for data protection key context. So I'll just change the name of the context class and then hit enter. This should create the migrations for data protection key context as well. So the migrations have been created. Let's go and check the migrations folder. So we have a migrations for data protection key context and for the application context. Now we can go ahead and delete the databases that we have already created so that the new database can be created in on our server. If we do not delete it, then the migrations would not be able to create the database because already a database with the name exists on your server. So let's go ahead and delete it. So here using Azure Data Studio, we can log into our server and then go ahead and run the following commands in the query window to drop the database that we have over here. Press F5 and then the command was executed successfully, so we can refresh to make sure that there is no databases on our server. Now let's go ahead and run the application. So the database is created using the initializer method that we have created. So as you can see, the commands are being executed. The database is probably created, so we can go ahead and double check just to make sure. So let's refresh this, and here we have a database is created. So if we look at the CMS Core NG dev database, we will have the country table created for us. Let's go ahead and look at the country table. We can just switch to the CMS Core NG database and run the command to select all from countries. And now if we run this, select and run this, we should have a list of all the countries that we see over here. So as you can see that the countries have been created. You can see the flags, the phone code, the 2-digit code for the country ID. This is the ID that we have assigned to the country, and then we have the ID that is assigned by our database. Now if you look at the states of the country, we have concatenated the names of the states using a pipe icon or pipe symbol or pipe character, whatever you can call it. And then for those countries that don't have any state, the state value or the state field or the state column is blank. So our country table is created. All the countries have been added successfully. So now let's go ahead and go to the admin panel to make sure that we don't have any errors, and if we do, then we can fix those errors. So I'm going to go to admin and I'm going to go to login. So let's enter the admin credential, which is admin@cms.com, and the password is test@123. So the login was successful. cookies are being created, so we logged in. You look at this profile over here. There's no image. We have to fix this. We are going to fix it. So, but for now, if we look at the profile, when we click on it and go to the profile section, okay, so we have encountered an error in the content layout that we are trying to access the model.sitewide setting.website name, but we cannot access it in this particular model. So let's go ahead and fix this so that we can then see the profile of the user. So I'll close this browser now, stop the application, and now we will go ahead and fix the error that we received from the admin base view model. So we can see the error here which says that the site-wide setting.website name is not set. So the object reference is not set. So which basically means this object value is either null or it's not available. So if we go back to the admin base view model, the content layout file, here we are setting the values for the website name, the website description and website author. These values are part of site-wide setting class, which is part of admin base view model, which we are injecting in the profile view. Now here we have set the site-wide setting to null. Therefore, the content layout cannot access the properties of site-wide setting. Initially, to fix this, what we can do is just to load up a page for testing purposes. I'm going to comment this piece of code, save this and go back to the browser. Here I'll try to refresh this page. And since I've commented out that code, it will no longer be accessed in the page itself. So the browser is loading, might take few seconds. Yeah, so it is loaded now and I don't see any errors. So the information is pretty much on our screen or on our window. We will go ahead and fix these issues. So we can see the administrator has logged in the profile details and the administrator name or the username over here. The role next to the profile details. Here the photo is missing or the profile pic is missing. That's because when we created the user, default user using the DB context initializer method, the initialize method we did not set a default profile pic. All right, so the string was basically empty, and here we also made sure that in the JavaScript itself, when we wrote the profile.js file methods inside the profile.js. So if I go to www.root lib custom js account profile.js, here the image for the user needs to be set as well, and we have set the profile pic. If the profile pic is null, the value is null, then we are setting this value over here to profile.jpg, which is the default profile image. But this folder is not yet created in our root folder, therefore it cannot find the default image, and when we go back to the browser, we don't see anything loaded over here in the image element or the image tag that we have on the index.cshtml. Okay, so the source is empty and this source needs to be the default profile pic. So what we can do is go ahead and create this folder and first add the default profile pic to load. So let's do that. So I have created the folder for uploading images. So I've created a folder inside www root folder, called it uploads. Then I've created a folder called as user. Inside user I have created a folder to store all profile images, and inside the profile image I have a folder called as default, which will store the default profile image in an event when the user does not have any profile images uploaded for themselves. Now this image, you can add any image of your choice. I have added this image. Make sure, right click and make sure that this image is included in your project. So the application, when you upload it somewhere on the server, it's always included while you deploy it on the server. So now I'm going to rebuild this application and then run this application and see if I can see the image being loaded. So if I go to the browser, but I'm going to switch from Safari to Chrome, and I will run this application now. So let's go to our admin panel, log in to our admin panel. Login is successful, and then go to the profile section, and here the image is still not loaded. What do you think the reason would be for the image not being loaded? So if I go back to the application here and go to the app settings file, I will go to the app settings file here. Here inside the app settings file, the profile pic path is invalid. I have added it inside the images folder. I need to change this. Also, when we created the user, this path was added to the user's profile pic column. If we go to the database, and here if we go to ASP.NET users, edit their data, and if we go to the admin user, I should see a profile pic column here. There, the profile pic column is basically blank. It does not have any value, which is why the images are not loading. So I can fix this by changing these values here. First of all, let's go ahead and change these values to default profile pic. So our default profile pic is inside the folder here. So I'm going to copy this, go to app settings and change this. So always we have the correct path. And then I will go to the option which is in my database for the administrator. I'll change it for both the users. I'll run this query so the profile pic is updated. So now you can see that it's updated. So if I go back to our browser, refresh, now we can see the profile pic loaded. So next time when we delete our database and we will recreate this database, the correct path will be used, because now we have added this path with the default profile pic in our application. So this path will be added to the column as well. So now we have this default profile pic loaded. Now let's check the drop down for all the options that we have over here. For the gender, let's try to search. So the chosen drop down is working, the search is working, and for the country we don't have any country being loaded. Okay, so we had some default countries that need to be loaded. So I can see here no country is loaded, and the select option is not expanding because there are no options here. So let's inspect and see if the country was called. So I will go over here and see. So here we have not yet created this API, that's why the countries are not being loaded. So the API endpoint is being called, but the countries are not being loaded because there's no API endpoint created. So if we go to the response uh, to the headers, you will see it's not found because it doesn't exist on our application API endpoint. So we'll go to our application and we'll stop our application, and inside the controllers, API version 1. We'll go ahead and quickly create this endpoint. So here I'm going to add a new controller class. I will call this country controller. So we just need one method here to get the countries. So here I'm going to change this to controller base, because this particular controller does not have any view. It's an API endpoint, and we need to specify the version of the API and the route as we did for the other controller over here. So let's go ahead and add that over here to this controller. So here I will add the API version, the API controller attribute, and the route. So now inside the country controller, we need to go ahead and instantiate the required dependency. Since we want to get the countries from our database inside the country table, I would need the DB context instance to access the country table. So let's go ahead and initialize it inside the country controller. So here I have initialized the application DB context using dependency ingestion. And now I can use this inside the method to access the country table. So all we are going to do is add one method here, which is an HTTP GET method, which is going to return the list of countries back to the user. So the API endpoint is called GetCountries. That's what we are fetching from our database. You can see here GetCountries, country controller version 1 and API. So that's what we have done over here. To add to the Microsoft Entity Core reference, and that should be it. Now we have added this. We have a country service. So let's go ahead and rebuild this application. And then we will test this application to make sure that the countries is loading in our browser. See, the build is successful. Let's run this application now. So application is loaded. Let's go and refresh our page, since our cookies still should be valid because the cookies are valid for an hour. So if I refresh this, I am still logged in. Now you see the country has got a 200 OK response. That because the endpoint was created, and you can see the countries are also loaded. If we go and check, if I want to search for let's say India, then I can find India. If I want to search for Canada, I can find Canada. So if I select Canada, I will get the list of states associated with Canada. If I select India, then I get the list of countries or states associated with India. That's because that's what we have added to our database. You can modify the list and you can update it. As you know, we have created a list inside the country model, so country service. So you can go ahead and update it, names of the states and countries. So now we have fixed these issues, right? So now let's also fix the site-wide setting issue that we are facing when we try to load this page, because we had just commented out that piece of code in the content layout, and we want to make sure that we also load these values dynamically. Because if you go to the finished project, here this is the finished project. If you look at the settings and if you go to site settings, here we can add the site settings or update the site settings. So these values are basically generated from here, and they don't have to be static. They can be changed by the admin user. So let's implement this view quickly so that we can use it in the site-wide setting class. So I'm going to quickly go back to the application here. I'm going to create the site settings controller inside the controllers folder for the admin area. So we have created this controller initially. We will be implementing this controller in the next video tutorial. We will be implementing the entire view so that we don't get any errors when we load the profile view, and the initial values, that is the website author name and the website name, also is being fetched from this controller. So we will do it in the next video tutorial. For now, this should be it. We don't want to make this video tutorial lengthy. So we have loaded the profile view. In case if you just want to test, you can go ahead and comment those 3 lines and you can test the profile view. But we will be implementing the site-wide setting options in the next video tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel Tech Howdy. All the code is available in the DevOps repo. Link will be provided in the video description. If you have any questions, you can use the comment section. We will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.